Hello, and again, welcome to Bit Depth. I'm Santiago Ramones. Across from me is...
Robert Hollis Jr. Yes.
It is so good to see you, man.
It's been a long time, man.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
How do we know each other?
Well, I met you one day back when you were practicing with the band.
Yeah.
And,
Don't tell Dina that is.
Don't tell Dina, yeah. I came back in from outside, and you were just kind of messing with some things with either your guitar or your bass. I can't remember. But you had this cool effect on your amp, and I was just entranced, man. It was everything to me. I just wanted to listen to that for the rest of my life. And started asking you some questions. We started bouncing ideas, and a couple years later, here we are.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm obviously, because of this podcast, I'm notorious for talking with people for a really long time, and I got stuck at your house because we just kept going. We pulled 2 all-nighters just talking.
And that's the thing is, both of us know how to keep conversation friendly, keep it at just words. And that's really what I'm all about with conversation is just keeping it at words and letting the intelligence flow.
Yeah. So the first actual question, what do you do? Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, so right now I'm a student, but going back a few years, I played football at the University of Oklahoma. I was number 67. I did 2 years for offensive line, and then my coach got removed. And the new coach and I didn't really see eye to eye, so I switched to defense. And there is where I got my career-ending injury. And the whole NFL dream kind of went down the drain. But it's okay because I made a lot of friends during that time, and most of us are still really close today.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then I guess some more things about me. I am a very avid gamer. I'm an only child, so growing up, that's really all I had, because I lived in a rougher neighborhood where I wasn't allowed to go outside and play. I also played basketball. I played that up until 10th grade. And then when I stopped doing that, I tried wrestling in high school. And boy, did I hate wrestling.
Really?
Yeah, it was just too hot. The men were not wearing nearly enough clothes. And you really don't realize how much you're going to dislike wrestling until you get somebody's armpit to your mouth. And then that kind of does it.
I did wrestling in middle school, and I loved it.
Yeah. See, and the other thing was, I had good strength from football and everything, but when you're wrestling heavyweight, I mean, you just got to deal with people that are massive, so you're never getting a break. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the lighter weight side, and so it's a bunch of little dudes. So even if you move up and down a weight class, it's not that drastic of a difference. But once you get up there, it's
yeah, because I mean, the smallest guys are 265 in heavyweight at that point. So it's just wow. But then. Moving forward a little bit about me, I really like music as well. I grew up in the Church of God in Christ denomination where they're all about the organ players. And my mom was an organ player, and I've begged her to teach me, but she will not because she said that she doesn't want to ever put that on anybody. All the hours of learning songs and people trying to teach you songs, but they only know it by ear, so you have to go off of them and et cetera, et cetera. So she's a very patient musician, but she was also a choir director at my church whenever we switched to Baptist. And man, we used to have 80 voices in our choir.
Dang.
And they could all sing, they could all blow, man. And so being at a church like that every Sunday, I got kind of desensitized to it, but every time I would bring a friend around, they were like, "Man, how have you been hiding this choir from us?" I'm like, "They're in plain sight, man."
Right. Yeah. So I do want to get filled in on what was it that brought you away? Because there was some time.
Yeah.
Where you moved away. What was up with that?
Yeah, so right after I got one of my injuries in football, I got diagnosed with bipolar 1, And, for a while there, it was hard for me to really talk about just because I understand the stigma of how negatively people see it. People view all of us as just these insane people that, don't base any of their logic in reality. And it's really hard to convey messages to people when the only thing they say about you is that you're crazy.
Right.
So I even got turned away from psychiatrists because they couldn't keep up with me. And so I guess it was really just a thing that, my God was showing through me, I'm going to bring you out of this, but we're also going to change the awareness of what bipolar is. So there's still some things that I can't do. I don't do too much alcohol just because I've never really been out of control of my body. I've never blacked out or anything.
Sure.
Except for when I got that first concussion, and I forgot my middle name.
Dang.
So the whole, movie that Will Smith had out with the CTE and everything, that's definitely real.
Right.
And I've been on the brink, not on the brink, but I've definitely had the thoughts of, what if I wasn't here anymore? And it's very weird to be at a place like that and people think you're not serious.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of people in my place would be like, all right, I am serious, and then there it is. But I would never do that, mainly because I have a very big ego and I'm very prideful. And so that's definitely what's kept me moving through. So when I left, I'd had probably like my fourth mental episode, and I had been off my meds for about 3 months just because, to me at the time, I didn't feel like I needed them because I was able to function through life. And plus my meds, they don't really help my mood. They just help my, perception of what's real and what's not. So whenever I left, I ended up hitchhiking because my car broke down on the highway. And I got picked up by two guys that did not speak any English. They only spoke Spanish. And so there was a lot of pointing and, pseudo sign language and whatnot. And I told them, that I needed to get back to Oklahoma because I think I was in Kansas when they picked me up. But they kept going north. And we went all the way to Minnesota.
Ooh.
And so then I started trying to work my way back down to Oklahoma, but I couldn't get another ride, So I told the story to a police officer because I was just like hanging out at a gas station, and the police officer came to ask me what was going on. And so I told him, I'm just trying to get back home to Oklahoma. And he was like, well, we can't do anything for you there, but we can get you to the next county. And if you have, enough, patience for it, we can take you county to county until we get you back home.
Dang.
So I made it like 4 different counties. And then while I was waiting for the next police officer to come get me, these 2 high school girls picked me up and they brought me to a church. And at this church, I talked to their pastor, and he was, definitely what you would expect from somebody who claims to be a follower of Christ. He got me set up with some of his friends who own a motel, and they gave me a motel for like 3 nights until they could get me a bus ticket to come back to Oklahoma. So those people were definitely like my angels, and that I actually see that, rather, if we can't agree on the same higher being that there is one. There is something out there that controls destiny and that looks out for people that want to put good into the world. So anyway, I didn't make it to that bus because I was still off of my meds at the time. And so I ended up leaving, going across the street to the gas station and end up arguing with the gas station clerk. And then I got arrested. I didn't get, booked or anything. They didn't even really do fingerprints. They just wanted to calm me down.
Right.
And they also got a hold of my parents because they were worried sick because I had been gone for 2 days at this point.
Right.
And so they brought me to a mental hospital. And it wasn't my first time in a mental hospital, so I wasn't really, worried about it. I was just going to do my time. And that was actually about 2 years ago, almost to the day, because I ended up spending my birthday in a mental hospital. And boy, that was not fun. But to people that, think of mental hospitals as just haunted and full of crazy people, they really know how to take care of their guests. The food is good, and you'll feel better in there than you will on your own. So
yeah.
So anyway, when I made it back, they took me to another hospital to kind of hold me, to kind of like readjust me back to reality, kind of away from all my influences like games, because like I said, I'm a big gamer. And I got to meet some really cool people. One of the guys that was working in the hospital, his name was Ben. I'll never forget it. His name was Ben, and he cared about me. I was never on suicide watch or anything, but he would still check up on me and make sure that I'm okay. He would give me like an extra cookie at lunch or something like that, And so it was just really cool knowing that these people care about me, and they don't even know me. And they have to deal with thousands of people a year.
Right.
And they, pointed me out. So that was cool. So then after I adjusted that, that's when I ended up deciding to stay in Tulsa to live with my mother. Because I'm an only child, and she didn't mind, taking care of me in this time of need. And then, so I spent a year in Tulsa, got everything back in order, and then I moved back here like January 7th, 2016.
Okay.
And so I've been back here since, and I've been in a good place. I've had some smaller episodes, but nothing that led me to run away, just ones that kind of like unlocked my like spiritual gates to where I was, receptive of anything. But I wasn't like, blind during this time. I still had my common sense.
Right.
And so the meds that I'm on now have been adjusted since then. And they lead me on a better path. I mean, like I can sit here and we can have these conversations all day because I don't get worked up about them anymore. And I also don't feel embarrassed. And that's one thing that I would like to tell anybody that's listening about mental illness. Like, go get the help, man, because now in 2018, it's out there.
Right.
They'll find something for you. So,
yeah.
So,
I mean, a lot of people don't know even, like, there's this perception of, like, oh, what is, like, bipolar? What is mental illness? And like you said, there's just this perception that, like, oh, people are crazy. But, like, so for you, what is it like to be bipolar?
Yeah, so just some of the things that I know I view differently because of my, mental impairment is I can see through things. I can easily notice scams. I can really know if somebody is focused on what I'm talking about, because if they're not, they'll either try to act like they're multitasking, like where they're looking right at their phone the whole time, or if I give them a thing that is fact, they'll argue with me and try to make it seem like it's only an opinion, in which I used to, take those as far as I could take them, but they're not worth my time anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if they want to believe in wrongness just so they can feel right, I'm going to let them because, there's billions of people in this world. I don't have this much time to spend on one that I didn't really know that well in the first place.
Right.
So, and then another thing is you just get really, it can lead to extreme paranoia just because your mind is so open and you don't really reject anything. And you, one thing that if somebody ever gets into an episode and they haven't encountered it before, watch the music that you listen to because there are definitely some hidden messages in music that when you're bipolar like me become extremely clear. There's a lot of almost like witchcraft and wizardry in songs, just because words can be so powerful, especially if they're accompanied by amazing music. You can just easily get lost. So for me, the things that are big for me that I've noticed differently since I've been diagnosed is that I just really, really am receptive to everything. It's so crystal clear to me that sometimes I can go through life and not even ask any existential questions. I don't need to. I'm set. you know? So, but yeah.
Yeah. And I do want to like clarify because I feel like I worded that in the wrong way.
Oh, it's fine,
in that
man.
it's different to be bipolar or to have bipolar disorder. Like, so I want to make it clear that like no one is a thing, like
Right.
you have a thing, and that's something that like you're saying right now, like you can, live with it. You can, overcome
Right.
these things. It's not like a thing that you are.
Right. Because if I was going to make a character sheet about myself, if we were playing Dungeons and Dragons or something, I wouldn't really specify that I am bipolar because I know how people look at it and I can move around those topics. I mean, I can put that in the back of me and just use it as, baggage rather than letting that be my locomotive steam engine.
Right.
So.
Let's talk about games for a little bit.
Let's do it. It's my favorite topic.
So how did you start playing games? Like, when was the first, like, bug?
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, so this is actually a funny story, and my dad might be mad if I tell it, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So I was, like, 3.5 years old, and the first game that I played was Mortal Kombat 2.
Nice.
Because my dad was experimenting with his computer, trying to run, what they call it command prompt now, but back when it was MS-DOS, you could run Mortal Kombat 2 through DOS, and my dad would do all of the blocking and the, moving back and forth and jumping, and every time he ducked down, though, he would tell me to push, the punch button so I could do an uppercut. So the funny thing about that is that's my favorite game franchise still.
Yeah.
I've owned every Mortal Kombat since then, and I will continue to purchase every Mortal Kombat that will ever come out.
I mean, there was a point in time where my friend and I could name every single character that had ever been in Mortal Kombat. And then Armageddon came out, and they listed every single...
I was just about to say that. I was like, with Armageddon, you get every character, including the bosses like Moloch and Onaga, So...
So then where did you sort of keep going from there? You started with Mortal Kombat, so then...
So the next was Duke Nukem 3D.
Nice.
Which... the art style of those original 3D games like Duke Nukem and Quake and Doom, Heretic, and we can go back on those. But they were so cool because they were clearly, like 2D sprites, but like the world was just shaded perfectly to where it looks like they're really in front of you, but they're really just as flat as can be. And so then the first games that I played off of PC. Before I leave PC, I am a huge Sonic the Hedgehog fanboy. No one can tell me that any Sonic game is bad because I've played them all and I love them all. Even Forces, people are like, Sonic Forces isn't this, isn't that. Yes, it's great. I have it. I love it. So then when I first got off of PC, my mother got me a PlayStation. It was right after my parents got divorced. And tell you what, I didn't really talk or care about that divorce because I had a PlayStation and I had about 10 games on it. And so I had Crash Bandicoot, Spyro. I had this old kind of like 2D game. It was a top-down view called Herc's Adventures.
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, I'll have to show it to you one day. It's a gem. And then I was a real big fan of all the Disney interactive games. So like Toy Story 2 and A Bug's Life, Emperor's New Groove.
I didn't know they made an Emperor's New Groove game.
Yeah, and it's tough, man. Ooh, man. I didn't get very far in it as a kid, but I've recently rebought it. And I'm going to try to make a dent in that just so I can say I'm smarter than a kid because, I don't know. So then when the next generation of consoles were coming out, with GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox, I was originally going to get a PlayStation 2 until I went to Best Buy and saw the demo for Super Smash Brothers.
Oh, okay.
And that changed everything for me. And the GameCube was a lot cheaper as well. So Mom was like, if you get a GameCube, I'll get you 4 controllers.
Whoa.
So your friends can come over and play with you, and I'll get you 2 more games. So it was a no-brainer.
Right,
right. Get 1 controller and 2 games, or 4 controllers and 5 games.
You're right.
That was an easy decision. And then the generation after that, I had a Nintendo Wii. Back when it was literally the hardest time in the world trying to grab one of those because each store would only get like 2.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I know I put my mother through a lot trying to get that thing for me, but she eventually did. And then one of my friends had an Xbox 360 that he didn't want anymore, so we just made a trade on that. Mm-hmm. And so I kept that 360 until it red ringed on me.
Right.
And then after the red ring, I sent it back because I guess it was still in warranty, and they gave me another one. And then that one red ring, but it was out of warranty somehow, so I got one off of Craigslist. And then, anyway,
But you found your way back to Mortal Kombat.
Found my way back to Mortal Kombat. You better believe it. Yeah, man. Actually, my favorite Mortal Kombat out of all of them was it's probably Armageddon, just because Armageddon had motor combat.
Oh, Motor Kombat was so
Motor
good.
Kombat, man. Motor Kombat was awesome. And then they also had puzzle combat on Mortal Kombat Deception. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of like that old Super Nintendo game, Tetris Attack. Mm. But yeah. But we can talk about games forever. Right. I don't know if you really want to do this with me, Mr. Ramones.
Another good deep cut chess combat on Deception.
Yes.
So much fun.
Yes.
But,
I also been working on my Mortal Kombat voice in case they ever need to replace the guy that does it. So, superb. Some stuff like that. So.
Although Ed Boon still does the Scorpion voice.
Oh, yeah. And he loves it. And I follow Ed Boon on Twitter, and, I just love all the stuff he puts because he talks about Injustice as well, because that's NetherRealm Studios also. But I think the best thing that happened for Mortal Kombat was Midway falling through because Warner Brothers picked up NetherRealm.
Right.
And so now they can add the characters that they've added in Injustice and Mortal Kombat X, and even Mortal Kombat 9 with Freddy. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. Except we don't talk about DC versus Mortal Kombat.
And we don't have to. we don't have to talk about it. But I am pretty good at that game. I'm going to pick the Joker, and I'm going to throw cards at you over and over again. And if you somehow get past the cards, I'm going to do my extendo glove. And if you try to actually hit me, I'm going to reach out my hand for the buzzer handshake. I'm the worst person to play at that game because I love that
game. Man. So let's circle back around to music.
Okay.
But at the same time, I'm noticing a trend that your mom plays a very important part in your life here.
Yeah, man.
Music. She gave you video games. Mm-hmm. She'll take care of you whenever
I'm sick. Yeah, for sure. And actually, my mother just came down this past weekend because I was kind of rocking the spectrum with the mania that I have, and she came and she helped me organize my medications, make them a lot easier for me to take, and keep me motivated about taking them and staying on a good path. But my mother and I, it's pretty much just been us since I was 4 years old. Because my dad, he paid child support and everything, but they still got divorced. And it was my mother and I growing up. I don't have any brothers or any sisters. I have some half brothers some half sisters and one half brother on my dad's side. But when it was just me and my mom, or my mom and me, that's all we were. Ride or die.
Right.
So she's taking care of me all this time, and now she's getting older. She's 53 now. But whenever she gets to where she can't do things anymore, she knows that I have her back as well.
Right.
She's really my best friend.
Right.
So, yeah.
So with music, I mean, you've been telling me you want to get back into music
Yeah,
and
man. Yeah.
recording and stuff. So what are some of your biggest influences?
So my biggest influence is actually this gospel artist. His name is Tone. It's Tonex, and he's who I listen. He was really the only artist I was allowed to listen to as a kid whose music was still bumping.
Right.
Because, like I said, growing up in church, I wasn't really allowed to listen to secular music unless I was like out with my friends or something.
Sure.
But up until about age 10, it was all gospel and kids bop.
Right.
So like, but Tone, he had some really cool songs, and he kind of makes it. He makes music for what I call the backsliders, for the people that don't feel they have that spot in the church, or that they don't, that the church won't accept them. And he's had his own problems too. He's kind of floated back and forth with his sexuality, and a lot of churches won't let him in church because he's just too real, and he disrupts the whole money system of church, which has been the looming problem of churches since churches, in conception.
Right.
It's just, do you want to do God's work or do you want to be profitable? And he kind of just like sings and raps through all of that. And I mean, literally the voice of an angel. I mean, he's just too talented. And his range, he can sing almost as deep as I can. Plus he can hit all the falsetto notes you could ever want. He could pretty much be your Eddie Kendricks or Marvin Gaye, so he's my biggest inspiration overall. But I'm also really big into rap. And my top 5 rappers, I've worked on my top 5 rappers list for a long time to the point to where if anybody argues with it, they simply just don't know about rap, or know enough, because my number 1 is Jay-Z. And the reason why Jay-Z is number 1 for me is because he's been so successful. And his last album, he was 47, and he still got nominated for a ton of Grammys.
Right.
And number 2 is Notorious B.I.G., and that's because he, was Jay-Z's like biggest brother in the rap game until he went out at his age. And another thing is, I look at how old I am now, which is how old he was when he died at 24. And that's just crazy to me how he made music that great.
Right.
And had, his first album definitely went platinum, but his second album came out posthumously, or however you say that. Posthumously, yes. Thank you. So it came out posthumously, and he, it went diamond. And like, rap albums don't go diamond, man. So he's number 2. Number 3 for me is Tupac Shakur. So a lot of people want to put Tupac at number 1, but Tupac to me didn't stay as driven in his messages, and he stirred the pot too much when the pot didn't need to be stirred. Right. Like the status quo was fine enough, and he just wanted to expose people. Not like his enemies, as such a common thing in rap, but he was exposing people in his own camp. And I just can't understand how someone can have that little bit of loyalty. Right.
Or as Dave Chappelle would say, when keeping it real goes wrong.
When keeping it real goes wrong, yeah. What's really hood? You know what I mean? But still, the talent, definitely there. I mean, miles above 99% of other rappers. The only 2 that are ahead of him are the people that I've put ahead of him. And then number 4 is Nasir Jones. Everybody just calls him Nas. Now, the reason why Nas is so high on my list, and he's probably not even on other people's list, but the reason he's so high on my list is because when he went for it to find his beef in the rap world, he went after Jay-Z. That's a bold move, Like, he made 2 diss tracks back-to-back on his 5th album talking about Jay-Z. And, since then, they've cleared the air. They've even recorded songs together. So I don't think there's any problems with them anymore. But number 5 on my list is Eminem. And the reason why is because Eminem got rap into houses that rap could never get into. He reached a whole nother demographic. He reached the skaters. Right. He reached, Caucasian households that
Right.
Jay-Z or Biggie, Pac, or Nas could never get into.
Right.
Like there would be no chance.
Right.
So that's why those are my top 5. Down the line, my 6 through 10, we can talk about those later. But I can support each one of mine with actual like accolades. It's not just because I like to hear them. So, and then I also have a few favorite singers, like Adam Levine. Oh man, I think his voice, man. Like, I just really hope that like God kept the mold when He made Adam Levine, so I can hear another Adam if anything ever happens to Adam. Female singers, Amy Winehouse. She's my generation's Billie Holiday. Simple as that. I wish she wasn't gone, but she just didn't handle fame that well. Sad, but
don't do drugs, kids.
Yeah, really don't. Really don't. Do not do them, because you can ruin your career as being the greatest ever.
Right.
Because that's what would have happened if Amy would have sang until she was in her 40s. She would have been the greatest ever.
I mean, freaking Hendrix, Elvis.
Yeah, Kurt.
Come on.
Kurt Cobain,
So, I mean, just
man.
Don't do cocaine, don't do meth, don't.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Like, just leave all that stuff alone, especially the hard stuff, because we're losing rappers now. There's a guy, I can't think of his name because I didn't listen to his music, but he died because he was, recreationally using Xanax. Come on, man. Like, anyway.
Right.
So.
Is that Lil Peep?
I think it was Lil Peep. Yeah, it was Lil Peep.
I don't know why that's like I think it's just in the meme sphere of my brain.
Yeah.
But I don't know any of those mumble rappers.
I don't know too many of them. Only ones I really keep up with are like, 21 Savage, because he's catchy sometimes, and he doesn't mumble as much. Some of his lyrics are clear enough. He's very monotone, though, and I think that's entertaining. And Migos, they're probably the most successful of the mumble rappers.
I mean, they created a whole flow.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Like, people won't stop using the Migos flow now.
Exactly.
So, I mean,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
triplets all over the place.
The triplets, man. The triplets. And it's 3 of them, which makes it even better.
Right.
Like, it's just so cool. But, yeah, and then I have some other artists that I really enjoy, like Pharrell. Because Pharrell, he's really big into his rock scene, too. I'm a big NERD fan, and I've been an NERD fan for a long time. So I like now that they're getting really popular with this last album and whatnot, because I'm like, yes, finally. Like, I don't have to be alone in listening to their music.
Right.
Because I've been listening to them since In Search Of, which is like early thousands, like maybe 2002 or 3.
Right.
So,
freaking, how old is Pharrell? Because he just
you'll never know by his looks.
Doesn't age.
Yeah, my man looks like he's 22 and he's in his 40s. It's wild.
So, what kind of stuff are you trying to make?
So, I'm definitely trying to get into rap because I've seen the rappers that are getting into the rap game today, and most of them are not good. And like, I'm just getting tired of like sitting back and waiting to see one that's good. I'm just gonna go be that next good rapper. And then I also like to sing, but I like to sing like old school style. Like, I like to sing like Temptations.
Okay.
Like, we can sing some Get Ready or some, Papa Was a Rolling Stone, stuff like that. Plus, I know that would make my dad happy because that's his type of music. I guess a little rewind to more about me. My parents have a 20-year age difference.
Oh, dang.
So my dad is 20 years older than my mother. So he's 73. He'll be 74 this year.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's still up and kicking. He actually went hunting last year.
Okay.
And got a nice buck. So, all right, Dad, keep it going, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's Robert Earl Hollis Sr. He's the one I got the name from. So if I ever meet a lady that can keep up with me, I would like to name my son the third. And just call him 3. Don't even really give him a name. 3.
Just have him wear the Chance hat all the time.
Exactly. He'll just be 3. And I think that's a cool nickname too. So,
right.
It's unique, at least.
Yeah, and I mean, you were just showing me some of what you've been writing. Is there room for like, you know, a lot of gospel? I mean, I just mentioned chants, so
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's room for gospel in rap.
And so the thing is, I think there is, just to let, you know, people know that you don't have to shed one identity to accept another.
Mm-hmm.
You can carry them all.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm going to always carry mine because I don't have any reason not to. Because for me, my God has brought me out of these situations with these manic episodes that I've had. I can't give anyone else credit.
Right.
Because, you know, I could say it was just the meds, but it couldn't have just been the meds because my meds have been switched 4 times on me. So it had to be some divine intervention, maybe, you know. That's just what my mind is going to choose to believe. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't see why, you know, my God would let me fail if I had kept him in the forefront. So.
I like it, man. Switching gears a little bit, as I always do in the podcast. What is the role? And I mean, it's already pretty clear. What is the role of spirituality or religion in your life?
Yeah. So growing up in church, I never really cared or thought too much about the religion. Mm-hmm. It was until I found it myself, because that's what the big thing was. It became a thing to where I was in such a dark, deep hole that I was like, maybe I'll give God a chance.
Right.
Because I'm not good enough to do it myself here, so maybe I'll give God a chance. And I did, and he has yet to let me down. And I know that I would rather spend eternity with him when I die rather than spend eternity in any other possibility. So
how did you like decide, and what brought you to decide that?
Yeah, actually, it was when I went back and started listening to Tone again.
Okay.
Because he has this song called God's Not Dead. And I was like, that sounds interesting. And he talks about in the song about how mentally he went into hell and he took the keys of hell from Satan and then went and brought the keys and gave them to Jesus. And I think that's like, you know, even if it's just a narrative, that's a pretty cool narrative, you know? Like, it's entertaining, you know? And like, he did it live and the crowd was all behind him and they were rocking out. And I was like, yeah, I like this. I can get behind this. So every time I kind of get down in the dumps, that's the song I turn to because it just gives me that little like, it's like a battery recharger, you know? So.
Yeah. And I mean, we've had like hours-long arguments over all the logistics. But like, let's start a little bit in like the basics here. So, God ?
Yeah. So with God ? That's a great way to start. Like I said, I don't recommend anybody trying to find God in church. And I know how groundbreaking that may sound, but you're not going to find the God you need in church. You're going to find the God you need on your own. And I also recommend reading all religious works you can. The Bible plus the naysayers that say the Bible is just a narrative. Like actually a really good book. Can't think of the guy's first name. I think it may be Dawkins or something.
Richard Dawkins.
Richard Dawkins, yeah.
The God Delusion.
The God Delusion. That's a great book. It's a terrific book. Like it's an amazing
Dawkins
book.
is too smug.
Yeah, exactly.
I prefer Sam Harris, but continue.
Okay. Yeah. So with that, I mean, you know, if God doesn't work for you, okay, I get it. I'll leave you alone.
Sure.
But if you're looking for something that's going to work for you and you fit all the requirements of what God can do for you, why wouldn't you try him?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah. And then what is your definition of God? Is it some beard man in the sky, or is it a little bit more nuanced?
My thing is, my view of God is he is the central storage for all positivity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, everything else that happens that people put in his name is divinely inspired by his being, but the whole like look upon the face of God, that's nothing that anyone will be able to do because God does not have a face.
Sure.
Now, angels do, and the angels are the ones that really put things into work. I really think that this is just my theology, I guess, but I think that the angels, do things to help themselves look better in front of God because heaven's lost more than half of the angels that they started off with whenever Lucifer got kicked out. You know what I mean?
I don't know what you mean, but continue.
Anyway, so there was a holy war that is mentioned in some Bible extra text. But Lucifer went to sit on God's throne, and then when he did that, that's like as big of a sin you can make in heaven to try to be God, and you're not God. So my thing is, he had a lot of people to kind of side with him, but so they had this holy war going, but God hadn't stepped in yet because in reality you can't beat God. You're gonna lose 50 times out of 10, like because he knows your last move, and he knows your moves when you were trying to preconceive them. So like, that's my thing. When I try to get too smart and think that I can somehow dance around this subject, that I could possibly one day, get to that level. No, because there's a cap put on my life. Like I'm a human. Like the divine isn't for me to know everything about. Sure. It's just enough for me. The level that he reveals it to me, the spoon feeding that he gives me is all I need for right now. So, yes, I have times where my faith wavers. Sure. Because I am a logical man. I am an intelligent man, and there are a lot of situations in my life where I don't need God's help. But for the bulk of my situations, I do. And so I know that he's a terrific crutch to have. It's like a super bionic crutch. So, but yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how it works for me. But I do recommend that if anybody is turned off by the whole God, concept, find him for yourself. Because he'll be whatever you need him to be. Right. If you need him to be your best friend, if you need him to be your dad, if you need him to be your brother, if you need him to be your mother, if you need him to be your dog, if you need him to, literally he can take the form of whatever you need him to be. Just don't lose yourself trying to find him.
I like that.
So.
And then some of the other logistics of free will, ?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, so I've never lost my free will. I definitely still do a lot of things that the Bible would consider sin. And I do. I mean, I get it, because what makes that okay for me, where I don't have to go to confession because I'm not Catholic and I don't have time for Catholicism. Like, I just really don't. But the thing that helps me stay on track is that I know that my free will is still mine. But since I'm a Baptist, I can either go talk to my pastor if there's something that I can't figure out, or I can, just pray. I don't have to get on my knees. I don't have to close my eyes. I don't have to fold my hands together. I can literally just direct link to Jesus, and then Jesus will direct link himself to God, and we're good, But my free will is still intact, and I'm still a little bit, crazy. The pills don't stop everything, so you can still get popped in the mouth, I guess. To all people that want to just look at Christians as soft people, we're not soft. We just don't have time to concern ourselves with foolishness like that, We're too busy speaking in tongues and running up and down the aisle, So.
So what is your definition of free will?
Yeah, so free will for me is, my definition would be that you can just do whatever you want on your own accord, and nothing is driving you but your own consciousness. So.
Okay. I could continue digging, but this is fine. Hey
man, we can do this forever. We used to do it all the time.
Right, but that's not what I try to do here.
Right.
How do you how does anyone be a good person? What is good?
There are a list of virtues, and anything you do that has to do with that list is considered good. Things that are selfish are not good unless it will eventually lead to helping others. And then there are vices as well. All of those things, they're not good, man. They're vices for a reason. So if you can ever look up what virtues are, like kindness, love, caring, charity,
right?
All of these things, I would, if you put the bulk of your time into helping those things, like my biggest thing is love. I love to spread love. I love to talk to people that have broken hearts. I love to talk to people that have mental, illness impairments that they haven't been, diagnosed with. I just love to help people find a better them. And I'm not talking about working out, or I'm not talking about dieting, because I do neither of those. I'm 6'5" and 320 pounds, and that's gonna be the way it is gonna be for a while. Because
you play a lot of video games.
Yes, play a lot of video games. Plus, I played a lot of football. When I was playing for OU, I weighed about 380. So now I'm down to 320. That's good enough. If we need to lose some more, we'll lose some more. But I'm not gonna work harder to try to do it. So yeah, good things are virtues. To sum it up. I guess.
And then how do you feel about how our culture's values are? Are we in the right place? Should we reimagine the way that culture sort of affects our values?
Yeah. I think that our culture needs to reevaluate a few things because people are quick to say that, somebody honestly asking for charity is a scam. Just because there are a select group of people that have ruined that and made it seem like everything is a scam, but some people really need your help.
Right.
Some people are really homeless.
Right.
Some people really haven't showered in months. Some people really haven't had a hot meal in months. So I think that we should really take love and charity and bring it to, people that we see that need it. That's why I love soup kitchens. Oh, man. That's the greatest thing put on earth. That's better than church, Because I like to – the one time I've worked at a soup kitchen is, I help, serve food and everything. And after that, I went to go eat with them. I just sat at the table with them and chopped it up.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, also education. Education. There are some things that need to be taught and need to be required. We put all this emphasis on, people having to learn a second language or something. I think people should have to learn music, honestly. Just because even if you don't have the talent, you should be exposed to these things. You should be exposed to what good music is. To know how many hours that these artists have put into their songs. Even when you used to come over to the house, I used to love just watching your process, man. I used to love the songs you sang, how high you could hit those notes. It meant everything, man, we were even going to almost perform together before I left. We had some stuff going, man. So, and music is just such a big part of my life that I think it should definitely be exposed, all the way through to even higher education. So.
Yeah. And then that sort of extends into politics in the way that public values have sort of been changing, or at least the perception of what public values are.
Right.
How do we combat this sort of, gigantic beast of selfishness that is the president, but also just culture in general?
So the biggest thing that I've noticed about our current president is he is the perfect reflection of ourselves.
Right.
And nobody wants to acknowledge that. I get it. Because nobody wants to say that they're selfish. Nobody wants to say that they're this, that they're that. But he won the presidency because he got called out for his vices. He backed up why he did his vices and covered up the deeper vices that he didn't want people to know. You know? And the way that elections have been going since before the first Bush, you know what I mean? Like, he ran a perfect campaign, and you know, I didn't vote, so my opinion really doesn't matter. But I mean, y'all picked him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, y'all gave that man that chair in that office. So really, just look in the mirror before you start pointing, and point at yourself first. So yeah.
Are we facing the apocalypse?
That is a terrific question because with my mental illness, most people that have it believe that the end is like happening in the next 5 seconds.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I stay constantly aware. My thing is, I am just going to follow the Bible in that respect, just because it tells you the signs that are going to occur whenever things are about to end. So when I start seeing enough of those signs, then I'll know to myself and tell my loved ones what to prepare for and whatnot. Because there's so many signs. I mean, these things are going to take place over forever, like over like multiple years, you know? So I don't believe we're currently in the end times, but we are definitely closer than we've ever been. I mean, obviously, because time moves forward.
Clock.
Yeah, because time moves forward, so obviously we're closer than we've ever been. But like, as far as like everything and all these signs and all these things that come up, even with the chip readers and credit cards now, you know, it's like, oh, that's almost like so-and-so. So I just really think that I'll be prepared for when the time comes because I've already gotten right with my maker. So I'm cool. And if my maker allows me, I'm coming back and getting my homies that don't want to roll with me. They're going to roll with me anyway. So...
How can we engage with people that disagree with us?
Let them know that if they take the time to listen and let their walls be broken down mentally, we can keep it at words. You know, I don't get angry with it anymore. I've never really have. I just know that one of the things that, you know, God told believers to do is to witness. So it's literally to give the message. I don't have to proselytize all the time. I can just stop, tell my message, and move forward.
Right.
I don't want to be a pastor. I don't even want to be a preacher. I would just need to speak at these places once.
Right.
You know? So
basically, if your friends have heard you say your spiel, it's like, all right, cool. You heard me, I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you don't want to listen anymore, when it happens, don't be like, hey, Rob, where you at? Because I told you already, you know? So.
And then how has your faith affected what you do with your life?
Yeah, it just makes me more accepting to things that aren't in my bubble. So, like, you know, ever since I started hearing the olden days when it was all of you guys, I really got turned on to rock music. Because, I mean, I liked some rock songs, but it was probably like 1 or 2% of my music that I listened to. Now it's like probably a good 20%. Just because I'm staying more open-minded, which helps me with my faith in my life because I'm more open-minded to ways that work for other people, and maybe they can work for me. You know, and if they're still virtuous, why shouldn't I embrace them?
Right, right, yeah. And then lastly, what advice do you have for people?
My advice is don't be afraid to ask for help. And if your friends can't give it to you, ask somebody slightly outside your friend group. If they can't help you, move on. Just keep moving on because somebody will eventually listen. You know, I found a couple of friends that I can tell anything to. And I've also lost some of those friends, but that's okay because there's so many people, you can make new friends. Like, it's hard, but like you know when you're like somebody. If you have all the same common interest, they're probably going to be a best friend to you down the line. Right. You know, if you have the same music taste, they'll be a best friend. So, yes, don't be afraid to ask for help. Second thing of advice is just be you, man. Like, because there's no point in trying to be somebody else. They've already done it. You'll never be as good as them. You can't be somebody better than they are themselves. So why don't you just start your own mold and, you know, you just be you. Be one of one, not one of a million. So you're worth a lot more that way.
Right.
So
also, there's like 7.5 billion people on the earth, so 1 in a million is actually not really that much.
Yeah, you know. So 1 in 7.5 billion. So we don't want everybody to be the same.
Right,
you know,
right.
Be one for one. Be the only. Like, I'm the only Robert Earl Hollis Jr. I'm not the only Robert Earl Hollis because my dad took my name. But, you know, that's a nice little joke. I always run with him. I'm like, hey, you know, I don't really care who my real father is. Even if you're not my real father, you were man enough to give me your name, so you get all my you know, pluses. So,
Rob, thank you for doing this with me.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. I'd love to do this again in the future.
Yeah. Well, we're literally about to do it again because that's how I record these.
Okay. Yeah. Round 2, baby.
But first of all, where can we find your things if you have them? And if you don't yet, plug some other things.
Yeah, so right now I don't have anything. I'm recording some stuff tonight, actually. So this will be a nice thing to look back on one day and be like, hey, that was before he actually even recorded music. So my rap name is Big L.I.D., L.I.D. I will, in my songs, I will reveal what LID means. For the time being, I have to keep something a mystery. That's how you get the people to listen, I guess.
Create interest.
Yeah. And so right now you can find me on Twitter at Rob Hollis II. I'm pretty sure that's my Twitter. I don't think I've changed it. You can find me on Facebook. I'm still on Facebook. If I comment something a little bit out of what your comfort zone is, stop following me, you know? I mean, I'm not going to stop for you because I don't know you that well anyway.
Or like, talk to him about it. Like,
yeah, or ask me a question. I love
talking to Rob.
Ask me a question because as Mr. Ramones knows, it's easy to talk to me about just about any topic.
Right.
And if I don't know it, I'm so willing to learn about it. Please tell me about your passions, you know? So, yeah. And then also, I'm not going to give out my other social media. I think Twitter and Facebook is enough. So, yeah. I don't post much on Instagram, so there wouldn't be any reason to follow that. All I do is like my friends' photos.
Right.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we've also mentioned Don't Tell Dina a few times.
Yeah, man.
That is how we know each other. They just put out an album.
They got an album out, man, and it's pretty nice. I've actually done a few plugs for it on my news, updates, my radio news updates at UCO.
Hey, wait. Plug that.
Okay, yeah. So, radio news updates, I do them every Monday and Wednesday. You can catch the first one at about 12 o'clock, and they run on throughout the day, like every 2 or 3 hours. And then on Tuesday, there's another guy that has a nice, sultry voice like mine. His name is Mike Potts. And Mike Potts, he does the Tuesday, Thursday shows. So if you want some news and you want to listen to it on your way to work, just go over to KZUC, which is UCO's radio station, the U Central Radio. And I'm not 100% sure what the call numbers are. It might be 99.3. That seems right. But if it's not, look it up.
You don't say it out loud like 20 times on the show.
Yeah. So I try not to listen when I go into the studio because it's just always so just blaring loud. But, yeah. So.
Well, cool. Again, thank you.
No problem.
I'm Santiago Ramones.
And I'm Robert Hollis.
You can find everything that I do on my website, santiagoramones.com. I do this podcast as well as all my music, which you can find on my website. I have a demo on there, Songs with Words demo, which you can pay $0 or you can pay $100. I don't care. Well, I mean, I do care. Just listen to it, I guess, if you want. Be sure to, let me know how you like the show, leave reviews and stuff. I always end my podcast with my 3 things. They shape my life philosophy. Those 3 things are: love never fails, it's going to be okay, I might be wrong.